City Council will come to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I think Councilor Lickey, I think, oh, here's the message right here. She's in the waiting room, so that must be on the Zoom. Can our friends in the, there she is, we got her. Councilor, can you hear us? Okay.
Yes.
We're good to go, thank you. Okay, next order of business, citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor. In consideration of others wishing to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Are there any citizen comments tonight? Johanna? State your name, Johanna, and you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Johanna Biddiscombe, Moosehead, Frank. Okay, I usually don't take notes, as you know, okay, but this is emotional for me, so I'm reading it, and I don't read as good as I can talk. We need special focus on environmentalism and ethics. Explore the moral reasoning related to human rights, moral law, character, justice, and consequences. Remember that word, okay? Who can spell it? I can. I have a degree, graduated from college 3.5. I had full scholarship in the nursing program, okay? I learned 4 different languages, not very good. Okay, this is what's going on. Okay, we solved the problem when we got a strong mayor government. And we solved the problem and only wanted Kathy, okay? I've been with The Rock, okay? We lost our peer. Well, I can't say it. He was one of the founders. And ever since The Rock started having problems, he could not quit crying. Well, they found him, not in good condition, but he was in a garage, I guess, okay? And he got to die in the hospital. Lucky. If he had to get out, then there's no taxi available to send him home. Okay, so to solve this problem, we know the problem now, right? So I'm asking every city councilor right now to resign. We lost 5 last week, okay? I was going to have people singing tonight, but it was scratched. Okay, soon you will see 2 famous people in this area was on front page. So I'm asking, I am almost more than 50% Scotch, Irish, and I have a temper. On my bloodline, there was a queen. Okay, I'm Queen Bee and I'm singing. You guys resign, period, okay? We were gonna sing Green Beret. We had my guitar player, 2 singers, female and 2 men and me, but we scratched it. I wonder why.
Thank you, Johanna. Are there further citizen comments? And as a reminder, if you're here to comment on the public hearings, you must wait until the public hearings are opened. Is there further citizen comments? Welcome, Matt. Please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Matt Weibler. I reside in Lewiston, Idaho, and I'm the...
First step for life, don't even have cots. Don't have food, don't have clothing. You just sleep on the floor, okay? We're losing a lot. 4 firemen, okay?
Thank you for your patience, Matt.
No problem. I serve as the current chairman of the City of Lewiston's Audit Committee. The committee was formed over a decade ago in an effort to review the city's audit function and related issues. We offer suggestions and bring increased integrity and transparency for the city's audit process. The city is comprised of 2 city council members, as well as several local citizen members, such as myself. And the audit committee meets 3 to 4 times a year with the city's director of finance and other city staff members, and the independently selected auditor. It's my pleasure to report to you all today that the committee has reviewed the process followed by the city staff and independent auditors and found that the comprehensive annual financial report provided to you today is highly thorough and is the result of them following their predetermined process as intended. It should also be noted, I think, that for last year's report, the Government Finance Officers Association of the U.S. and Canada awarded a Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of Lewiston for the 32nd consecutive year for its last year's comprehensive annual financial report. So the Certificate of Achievement is a prestigious national award recognizing performance of the highest standard for preparation of local government financial reports. Should any citizens have comments or questions about this, they can direct them to any member of the audit committee or to the auditors directly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for your
Thank you,
comments.
Matt, for being on that.
Are there further citizen comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. Roman numeral 4, financial report, 4 months ended January 31st, 2023. There is no oral report today, councilors, unless you have a question. We'll move on to the next item. Okay, I don't see any. Councilors, Roman numeral 5, public hearings and related action items. First up, item A, public hearing on the 2023 Transportation CIP, accepting testimony on the 2023 Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. We have Director Dustin Johnson with us here tonight. I will open the public hearing. We'll have a staff presentation, testimony from the public if there is any, and then we'll close the public hearing. Councilors, just as a reminder, you may ask questions of staff or any public testimony that we received. Once the public hearing is closed, you'll no longer have that option. So with that, Director Johnson, welcome. If you'd please introduce yourself for the record, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. I have the pleasure to come to you tonight. There's 3 times we have
Director Johnson, I'm sorry to interrupt you for 1 second. I'm going to declare that the public hearing is open. I didn't quite do that. I gave the rules, but I didn't open it. So we will now open the public hearing up, and I'll turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Again, Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. Annually, 3 times, Public Works comes before you with public hearings, and they're all significant in my book. One obviously being the budget, the second being the utility rates, and then the third is what we're here for tonight, which is the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan update. What I'm going to do tonight, some of you, this may be familiar territory as we do it annually. Some of these are recycled slides, but I feel it's best to give everybody, the public, and some of you a reminder of how we put together transportation planning to projects in the city of Lewiston. So generally what we work off of today is the 2020 Transportation Plan. That was adopted obviously in 2020. The numbers, the data, everything was compiled over basically pre-COVID all the way through and adopted during COVID. This is basically the Bible in which we use for surface transportation planning. So everything in there from pavement assessment, accident data, the street connectivity, all kinds of traffic volumes, everything's built within this. It's a massive undertaking, which is why a transportation plan typically, depending on how fast you achieve the projects or how fast your community changes or dynamic changes or whatever else, also funding is available. These plans typically last from 5 to 10 years, but with some updates as you go along. So at some point we'll start noticing the data that's in these plans becomes a little stale, and we need to refresh all of that. Within this plan are appendices. And the one that we're talking about tonight is the Capital Improvement Plan. So it takes all of that data, which is a snapshot of 2020, and projects it forward into these projects. So As I said, if these plans last for 10 years, we don't want to paint ourselves in the corner and say, well, in 2020, Bryden was a top priority, so once we accomplish that, we're done. Or something changes and we're not gonna listen to the public, we're not gonna listen to the changes in condition. This is our avenue to listen to the public, listen to what's going on in the conditions as far as funding and actual going on in the street. So we open this annually for public comment, we listen, we evaluate the scene out there and take it before the council tonight and say, here's what the data told us in 2020, here's the changing conditions, here's what the people are saying, and then you are, the body that says, I agree with what the data says, or I want to move this one around, or anything else. So I'm going to give a little background on all of that, and then kind of show you what the data says as of today. So what is a transportation plan? Kind of already hit on all of that. So evaluation of the existing system. As I said, the transportation plan, the body of the report is a snapshot in time of what the conditions were in 2020. The appendices, they can be updated and should be updated as the conditions change. And as I said in a second bullet, analyzing the future transportation needs. And currently, until the comprehensive plan is updated, which is under contract now, this plan serves as the transportation chapter for the comprehensive plan. So the goals of the plan, 1 through 5, I'm not going to read them all, but I will say goal number 4 and goal number 5 is exactly what we're doing tonight. Attain the buy-in and consensus from the community and develop partnerships and leverage funding opportunities out there. So that's kind of what we're doing with this capital improvement plan as we amend it throughout the year, every year, annually. Breakdown real quick, as I've already said, this is a massive document. I tend to not carry it around with me because it's so large. 217 pages, a compilation of over 20 previous studies and plans. So trying to learn with what we already know and looking back in the past and projecting forward. The concepts that are new to this plan that kind of changes how we've done transportation planning in the past is the project prioritization criteria. So that's Appendix I within the transportation plan. That is, people always ask, well, how do you prioritize them? And so they essentially set up with a steering committee the criteria. How many cars go through there? Are businesses served? What's the pavement? What's the accident data? What's the congestion? What's the location? How many lanes? It looks into all that, and it's a massive spreadsheet, and it breaks down trying to set everybody on the same playing field. So a small residential street out in the orchards that sees 20 cars a day probably won't get the same prioritization as 21st Street. They're just two different roads that serve two different public, and the way that we would invest and prioritize those are two different ways. The PPG, the Public Participation Guide, which is what we're talking about tonight, I'll get into more detail on that, and then the Transportation Capital Improvement Plan, which feeds off of both of those, the PPC and the PPG. You give engineers an opportunity, and we will give you as many acronyms as you can swallow here. So, Public Participation Guide. So as I like to tell people, I do not want to build a project that you don't want. So we go out and we try to make sure if somebody wants to come to me tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. after we've adopted this CIP and tell me that we were all wrong, we will take comments at any time, 24/7. Well, I do like to sleep at some point, but we are always willing to listen, and I want to hear the public give me feedback on whatever is that they're seeing out there, because I will say, I work in an office. Unfortunately, I work in an office more than I want to, and the people who use these roads, whether it's a bus driver, a kid going to school, a mom picking a kid up from school, they know the system better than I do, and I'm not going to tell you that I know it better than they do. So I want the public to feel like, you may not get what you want, but I want you to feel like you're listened to. And so everything that's laid out in this public participation guide is the process in which submitting comments gets reviewed, the engineers look at it, and what's ironic about a lot of this stuff, people, and we'll get into the public comments that we've received, a lot of the comments received tend to match the data. People talk about 21st Street, the condition of the pavement. Well, I've got data that says, yes, you are right, it is bad pavement on 21st Street. The traffic congestion or turning movements on Thame, I have data that back that up. So all of these things that people comment typically just help us further support the data that we see. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail. I don't think this is necessarily what tonight is about, but more often than not, I think people get frustrated with the process of how transportation projects are funded. Unlike other utilities or the utilities in the city of Lewiston, water and sewer, you pay a user fee. So you consume more water, you're going to pay that. There is no user fee for transportation. There's a gas tax. So you pay, you get gas at the tank, that goes to Idaho, we get a portion of that. But that's not proportionate to what the true cost is for managing our public streets. So the local funds, which you have the most flexibility in managing, are obviously property tax, gas tax, and the franchise fee. So the timeliness of this presentation tonight kind of coincides with the discussion that the mayor will have later that I'm not going to kind of run into his conversation. But those are the three main components that are the local funds that we have to deal with. They give you the most flexibility. So if you want to build a street and you don't want strings attached, federal guidelines or anything like that, that's where your funding source is best to come from. But they're also the hardest ones to get. Nobody likes to raise property tax. Gas tax is dictated from state law, and the franchise is obviously approved by voters. STP funds, Surface Transportation Program, those are federal dollars that are directly from the feds to what our Metropolitan Planning Organization manages. So the MPO manages these STP funds, and so we get a certain allocation each year. We get to build those funds up until we have enough money for projects. Traditionally, Lewiston may have fallen a little bit behind because the reliance on the STP funds allow a city, so right now, Bryden, the first phase of Bryden, 4th to 7th, is funded 87% by STP funds. We'll get into the prices. It takes a long time to build up enough funds in STP to construct a large project. They're federal funds, so they're not coming out of your property taxes, they're not coming out of your gas tax. But for you to start a project, as we've talked about in the past, Bryden, I think the conversation started 20 years ago, and we're still at least 5 years out from actual construction. So it takes a long time to build those funds up, to get right away, to do environmental, to get all those things. And so you don't have the flexibility you would with your own local funds. These other, the other ones below that, TAP, FLAP, LSIP, those are all grant funds that we annually apply for as the opportunity arises. So FLAP, Federal Lands Access Program, the most visible one that we've had success with in the last couple of years is the crossing of Snake River that went up to Normal Hill. People have given me an earful saying, that's why didn't you spend it on 21st Street? That grant we just turned in, and they came in and basically administered the whole project because it was access to the levee trail system. 21st Street, Snake River Avenue, all these other roads weren't eligible for that funding. So as we go through this CIP list, we look at how projects match the funding sources. So if a grant comes up, the Local Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is an annual program that comes out there, we know how, that's a spreadsheet. That one we can get on there, we can look at the criteria and say, these 3 projects will rank very highly, so we're gonna turn those in. We know these projects won't, so we're not gonna waste our time. So those grants, it's always it's a mixed bag, because you're gonna get projects that aren't necessarily in your top, but you're gonna be able to tick through lists. And a lot of these transportation alternative programs, those are programs like pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, get kids to school. Those are great programs, but they're not multi-million-dollar programs. So what we have in front of you tonight is the capital improvement plan, Appendix A, within the transportation plan. Currently, it's broken down into 144 projects, originally ranked using that PPC that I outlined from Appendix I earlier. We've updated it annually every year since 2020. As I said, I would love to hear as much public input as I can, but it's limited just because who wants to, people are passionate about transportation, but oftentimes it's not that exciting when you start talking about funding sources and schedules and pavement indexes. So I love to get feedback, but it's a difficult thing to get people to come and participate in it. So here's your 2023 capital improvement list, the top 25. So I, in the past, have used this as a way to browbeat former councils because, as we said, the STP funds, you know, we're roughly, let's just say a round number of $800,000. You can see that the top 25 is $142 million. So if you're relying solely on federal dollars, you're never going to catch up. I will say in the last 3 years, Lewiston has made some massive strides. The police retirement system, or the police retirement fund has temporarily closed out, so some of those dollars have gone into transportation. The mayor is going to talk about franchise fees. We're making some large strides in funding the transportation network and not just relying solely on the STP funds. I'm going to call out these 3 projects. So top one being Bryden, number 8 on the priority is 9th Street grade, and then number 13 is Snake River Avenue, basically from the roundabout to 11th. All 3 of those projects are in the STP queue, STP list. So they have, all 3 of those projects have been designed. All 3 of those projects are now moving forward. And all 3 of those projects have been on that list before I was at the city of Lewiston. So what's unfortunate, or fortunate, however you want to look at it, those are number 1, number 8, and number 13. If we were to do it again today, we probably would reorganize those. But what's unfortunate is if the city of Lewiston decided, you know what, I don't want to build Snake River, you have to pay back all of the design costs back to the federal government, and then you start over. And so these are all projects, obviously, in the top 25 that are viable, good projects. They're not the top 3 necessarily, but they're good projects. The city has committed in the past to construct those based off of federal dollars. I just can't, in good conscience, say, yeah, let's move to something else. You stay committed to these large STP projects, and you see them through. The other 2 projects I want to call out, number 3, which was, I think last time I saw you, was the mini roundabout at 10th Street in Burrell. And then number 4, 21st Street. That 21st Street, which is just short of $10 million, that's a total reconstruction cost. I think I've talked a little bit with this council in that where 21st Street is, and we don't have the money available or even the STP funds available to reconstruct 21st Street. So we're working on doing a pavement, basically repaving 21st Street to get us, so 21st Street in future years, if everything goes according to plan, we'll mill and overlay it. We'll get a better pavement. We'll do a special overlay with structural components within that overlay, get us 10 to 12 years on that. And, you know, 21st Street will drop down on the CIP because it will be the pavement condition will be significantly better. You still have the sidewalk and some other issues that need to be reconstructed, but it will go down, and then we will work our way to fund 21st Street going forward. But I wanted to call out the 2 separate approaches. You've got the red arrows on the right as federal projects, and the blue arrows on the right as local dollars. So I did provide you our handy dandy little spreadsheet here of the comments that we did receive. We did receive 7. I'm not going to go into too great of detail because I don't want to maybe misconstrue what the comment really intended. The first one was widen Warner and fix that big dip down there. We reviewed that comment, and Warner I think is number 15 on the CIP, 14. So it is on the list, it's identified. It is identified as a 3-lane section for reconstruction. And then we did add to the file the comment about the SAG, the vertical sight vision, that will need to be addressed when that design moves forward. There was one comment that was mostly just questions about the Bryden project. There was one person that submitted 3 comments. Not a fan of mini roundabouts, not a fan of any roundabouts, and then said that we should stop spending money, period. So I guess this is a planning document. This is not a funding document. So we only prioritize, my job is to tell you how much it costs and where the numbers put it out for prioritization. One commenter provided pedestrian access, better pedestrian access generally in the Camelot School area. That one, there is a ranked pedestrian project. It's low on the list, it's number 58, but it is identified as a project, so we didn't see it needed to be added, but we could move that up higher. And then also the last comment that person made was make downtown, the reconstruction project, a higher priority. So with that, I have no further presentation. Our recommendation is review, consider public comment, take more public comment tonight, amend it as necessary, and adopt the updates as you see fit. I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Tasley?
Thank you. How long was this open for comment for the public?
Yes, typically what we do, there is 2 public comment periods, and the first one goes out, we go out like November, and that is, give us all of your projects. And so that process starts and goes through December, and then January, we take all of that comment and say, well, we've updated, we've added, and we didn't add any this year. We took one off, which was the 19th and 21st, which was completed, so that one went off. And then we go out for public comment again, saying, this is the new list, so provide public comment, so that goes out. We waited after the holidays, so it went out early January of what you're seeing tonight.
So since early January, we had 7 comments, 2 by one person, 3 by another, and then 2 other people. Is that right?
Yeah. And
Thank you.
Unfortunate, the timing, I wasn't able to the open house, which was here, was the week of the reservoir rupture. So
Yeah.
we
You
did
were
have
busy.
people attend. I think there was, most of people, and I don't want to, the process is the process. I think it's beneficial, but people more often than not have questions. And once they see the list and they see the cost, more often than not, and you can see, staff didn't see anything that required, from the data point, there's nothing for us to recommend changes. It's more of, this project should be higher than that project, or I've seen this happen before, and a lot of it, it's just an organic way to have conversations with the users. So, yeah, we only did get 7 comments, and I think that's down from last year, but it is constructive to just have that conversation.
Thank you.
Councilor Kleberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Johnson, since the county, we got involved on that, there was comment about the tip on Warner. Have you heard anything about that? Because, I drive out there quite a bit, and it seems like that walk path has made that route significantly safer.
Yeah, that was I would say a successful project, given that the budget was basically nothing, and the widening, there was no shoulder, and we worked with the county, worked our way through there, and, we have our shop out there, and so I have not witnessed it. Like I said, I spend too much time in the office, but I've gotten a lot of positive feedback that the kids are using it extensively. Not just kids, but people trying to just get to, community park and those trails. So
Sure.
I would say, I don't know long-term how long that, we built it to a pretty stout standard, but I would say that's been a pretty good project. It makes me feel better that the kids are now not on that fog line on Warner,
Yeah.
especially on that sag, but I would say that's been a successful project. But again, when we do projects like that, that's to make an immediate impact on a concern that we have. But Warner still needs to be reconstructed, and Warner that's an expensive road just because of where it's at.
Sure. Thank you.
Councilor Spicklemeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. Director, can you go back to your screen or forward to it that showed the list and you had the federally marked projects? So basically, my understanding of what you told us is that the federal ones, the 3, we're actually financially obligated to proceed with them no matter what the ranking? Or we lose money?
So back, and I don't know exactly when these went on, so the city communicated to the MPO to say, this is the project we want to put on. And so there is a hopper of, you put them in, and there's basically design dollars. And so you wait your turn, and it's a complicated, you get your money, but you get a piggy bank, but then there's only so much money that actually comes into the state of Idaho. So everybody has a turn to wait, and once you're back at the top of the list, then you get your money to start the project. So those projects were all in the queue for design, and I don't know what the expense, I don't have those numbers with me tonight, but yes, all those projects were designed and set on the queue, so then once you complete the design, then you move into the construction side, and then you wait your turn. The good news is on both 9th Street and Snake River, I think those projects are all slated for construction in the next 4 years. So they're moving along. There's been a little bit more money coming from the feds since COVID, so these projects have moved faster than normal.
So, but in reality, they should be in the top 5.
And I don't know what criteria this was a different transportation plan when they were added, so I don't know what criteria they used to add these projects or why they were added. I can't speak to that, but yeah, they were, the Public Works Director and city engineer at the time chose those projects. 9th Street, it looks, we repaved that last summer. It looks good, but underneath that, it's an old 1920-ish, they've rebuilt the guardrail on it. It needs a new retaining wall underneath it. So it looks better than it is, and so I think that's why that one was added. And Snake River Avenue was a 3-phased project. The first phase was a roundabout. The second phase is 11th to Southway, or Southway to 11th, and then I think it's on here somewhere. Oh, it's even a higher priority, was Main to 11th. So that's probably why that one was included, was when they did that roundabout 10, 15 years ago.
Thank you.
Kleber. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councilor, excellent question. Being on the MPO for, several years, once you accept federal dollars to get the study going, it was just like the roundabout down at the end of Southway and Snake River Avenue. And we had a long discussion about that. It was going to cost the city, 7%. The feds were going to pay 93%. But once you accept those federal dollars, that is what the problem is if you decide we're going to pass on that project, any money that's been expended is coming straight out of Director Johnson's budget. It's got to go back to him. So the 9th Street, one of the things about that, and I think Chief Michael Buss can attest to that, we talked about this several years ago, the road's sitting on some piers. If you've ever been down to the bottom of it, and if that thing goes, I'm talking from a life safety standpoint, that's the one that gets a lot of the ambulance traffic up to the hospital, and that would be unbelievable. And the road is structurally unsafe, in my opinion, for the amount of traffic it hits. So that's when you're talking about prioritizing projects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one that we've got a chance on actually getting rebuilt. Bryden's the same thing. Bryden probably won't be rebuilt until 2028. We all know Bryden's really kind of crappy right now, but we can spend money on an intersection like 5th and Bryden, to kind of tune it up a little bit and get rid of the ruts. But do you really want to spend a whole lot of money on 5th and Bryden when we know that down the pike, we will have the money to rebuild Bryden from 4th to 7th. So that's the argument, or not the argument, but the conversation I have with quite a few people. How much do we want to put into it in the interim when we know we're going to rebuild it? So
That's exactly what I spend most of our day doing when it comes to transportation, is looking at 21st Street as an example of that.
Correct.
That pavement will not make it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to when we can do the full reconstruction of it. So we have to have an interim solution. It's not how I'd like to do it, but those are the cards we're dealt with today.
yeah.
Councilors, Councilor Lidke?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Dustin. and I know that's not particularly the plan, but more of a slide that was generated. But when you look at the plan, I'm not really seeing differentiation of like who's running this, because when I look at just even the top 5, I'm going to assume that number 1 is actually being handled by the URA.
Yeah, so all of these projects are managed by the city. So like Bryden is, yes, number 1, and it coincides with the URA district. So right now, the URA board works with staff to, like the URA is paying the federal match. So these are, I think 93% is federal dollars coming in for a project. So typically the city has to match that leftover 7%. The URA is just the bank, so they are paying that 7% match. I know the URA has reached out to Lloyd and the city utilities that need to be relocated and have had set up agreements, but these projects are managed by the city internally. There's still it gets a little convoluted in that these STP funds go through the state of they're funneled through the state of Idaho. So LTAC is the actual authority that we report to, that it's federal guidelines, so we have to check all of the lists. And so LTAC is the state agency that we work through, or ITD. It used to be ITD, now it is LTAC. So we control our fate. We just have to work with other agencies to work through all jump through all the hoops to get these projects going.
Thank you. I think that would help, just as we look through this, to kind of know if there's, I don't know how we want to label URA, because they are the city, but they're not. But it does add a component that I think we need to make sure that we can identify that these projects are being actively worked on as far as where we are in the plan. And so as I look through that, and then I think for me, when we talk about number 6, which is Main Street and D Street from the Interstate Bridge to Jefferson Street, for me, knowing that we're going to do the Band-Aid for 21st Street, knowing that's not exactly great, but I do feel like Main Street needs to be talked about more because of not just the road condition, but overall infrastructure and the risk we're taking by continuing to ignore 100-year-old pipes and other infrastructure underneath, and running next to buildings that are owned by local businesses and people really trying to pump money into our downtown and build something. And so I feel like we need to look at where are we with these projects and really prioritize, whether it's on this capital improvement plan, which would make sense since it's such a large document and it has taken a lot of work, but I would like to see that we're showing that arterial roads that we know are getting a lot of heavy use, like 21st Street, Main Street. Obviously, Thane Road is something that I was trying to find it to specifically talk about it, and I can't even locate it, and I don't know if I'm just cross-eyed right now trying to zoom and look at the plan, but I feel like, some of these little projects, which I totally get that when we have money come in through special projects and we can hammer them out, I'm all for that. Of course, I was not for the roundabout at 10th Street and Burl, and knowing that it's number 3 on there, and then, hearing the public comments of no more mini roundabouts. And I understand, I'm sure it's frustrating because we do need more people to show up and really talk about what they're seeing and what they're observing, because it's hard for even 6 or 7 of us to sit up there or in Zoom land and say we understand the needs of the city without really hearing from the public. But I think from my experiences with working as a business and with other businesses, and then just hearing from the public, they don't like to show up to those meetings. I'm not sure why, but I do think we need to really look at us as a council. What is our priority, and what are we going to do as far as making sure that the dollars that we spend especially as we build the next budget, what does that look like? And for me, there's a lot of little things on there that, while I'm sure people that live on 20th Street North and State Highway 128, I'm sure that could be of importance, but at the cost of that, to where, what's going to positively affect more of the community. I really hope that we can start having those conversations, and they're not going to be fun. I mean, obviously, we're going to make a decision or two that's not going to please anybody or everybody, but, when I look at this plan, I wonder where some of our arterial roads that, yes, I get that the price tag is big, but state of Idaho has money, and we need to be fighting for that so that we can start making some solid improvements, so that the public can see. So I'd like to see Main Street and 21st Street move up to the top, and I'd like to see Thane at least make it to the top 10.
Counselor, is that a motion?
Andy?
Actually, this is a public hearing at this point, but you can save that for later if you'd like.
I can make that motion at the appropriate time.
Counselor? Okay, is there any testimony from the public? We didn't forget about you. Okay, well, I will declare this public hearing closed. Councilors, we move to item B, Resolution 2023-15, considering adoption of the 2023 Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. This is an action item. We just heard from Director Johnson, so the item is before you, Council. Councilor Litke.
I would make a motion to approve the resolution with moving some numbers around, which I'll have to look at again. Not having the plan in front of me is proving difficult, so just one second.
I'll go to Councilor
I would
Schroeder.
move that we
Okay, go ahead.
approve resolution 2023-15 with the following amendments, moving current number 4, ranking number 1, current number 6 to ranking number 1, current number 4 to ranking number 2. And I cannot find Thane to move that into the top 10.
I'll second
But I
that.
would like the Thane Road project moved to the top 10.
Second her motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Litke, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to approve Resolution 2023-15 as amended. And that is to make project number 6, which is the CIP ID number of 2020-096, to make that the number 2 rank, pardon me, and then CIP ID 2020-124, change its rank from 4 1. Did I get that right, Counselor? Did I get it backwards?
Backwards.
Can't read my own writing, so pardon me. Jeez, I need a new set of glasses. Okay, let me restate the motion. Approve Resolution 2023-15 as amended. CIP ID 2020-096 would go from a rank of 6 to 1. And then CIP 2020-121, or 2020-124 would go from a rank of 4 to a rank of 2. And then every other project would then adjust accordingly in rank. Is that acceptable, council? Legal?
Yes, Mayor. My only question for clarification is I think Councilor Lidkey requested that Thane move into the top 10. If that's part of the motion, then I would recommend having that clarity, but I'm not sure if it is.
Thank you, Kayla. Counselor, I don't know that there is a Thane project on there other than some bike sharrows and stuff like that. So I couldn't find it either. So unless you can identify it by CIP ID number, it's hard for me to do that. So
If I can, Mayor,
Yeah,
there's
I'll
two
withdraw
Thane projects.
from my motion and then,
okay, Director Johnson has an update for us, Counselor.
Now I've lost it myself. There's the Thane and 10th intersection that's called out as a large $10 million project. And then project 148 is the mill and overlay of Thane itself.
What's the rank on that, Director?
148. Is that what you said?
Sorry, no, 128 for the overlay.
Councilor Lidkey, if you have that capital improvement plan in front of you, that's number 128 on the rank, CIP 2020.
yeah, if for Kayla and I'll just restate my motion.
Please.
As soon as I write down the numbers at a size I can see. I would move that to approve resolution 2023-15 with the following amendment. Moving project number 2020-096 to spot number 1. Project number 2020-124 to number 2 on the list. And then I would also like respectively project 2020-139 and 2023-001 moved to positions 9 and 10, and all subsequent numbers be shifted down accordingly.
What was the fourth one, Counselor? 2020 what?
2023-001, and that is the Thane 10th Street intersection near the high school where we are experiencing a lot of congestion.
What is the rank on that currently?
That is number 48, and then 2020-139 was the overlay.
Okay, so again, I have to ask, I'm sorry, I keep track of this. 2023-001 would go to number 10?
Yes,
Okay.
and 2020-139 would go to number 9.
Okay. Gonna check our knowledge here. Kayla, do you have any questions, or Carrie?
I think we have it as long as Councilor Schroeder is okay seconding that motion.
Absolutely.
Okay, counselors, do you understand the motion?
It's on a motion. I'm going to make some comments.
Okay, is there discussion?
There is, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support this motion in any way, shape, or form. We have different funding sources. These have been plans in the works for years. And reprioritizing different projects at this stage of the game I think it's not only, it's not wrong, it's just dumb. I mean, these things have been in the work for years. And we're gonna give up funding for Bryden, or we're gonna give up the funding for, granted, the 10th and Grill roundabout on the big scheme of things is kind of small, but, Snake River Avenue, stuff like this, there's funding that's already in the pipeline. So now we're gonna vote on reprioritizing things, going after something else that we don't have any funding for. To me, is just, I think it's just destructive. I'd ask, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, Dustin. This
I can speak.
plan has been going on.
Again,
We have a 40-year transportation improvement plan through the MPO. And that was approved about 4 years ago. It was right here in this facility. These projects have been out there on the table for a long time. To reprioritize things now at this stage of the game is wrong.
Thank you, Counselor. Director Johnson, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just say, my marching orders are to continue on the projects that are funded. So the number, Bryden may no longer be number one, just like Ninth Street may have been one 15 years ago when it was prioritized and selected on the SDP list. So as planning projects forward, the funding sources, if it came now that 21st Street is number one, we'll start focusing our efforts more into 21st Street than whatever is now below it. But I would not discontinue, that would take a separate motion from the council to stop work and refund the money that we would owe the federal government. So I'm not changing design or projects that are already underway.
Mayor?
Counselor Kleberg?
And if I may, again, money that's already been spent on some of these projects will have to be refunded, and then when we go to reapply for that funding, we're gonna be put at the bottom of the list. I can guarantee you that.
Director Johnson, are you saying that the funding is not at risk, or it is at risk?
It is not at risk.
Yes, thank you.
That takes a separate motion.
Yep.
This is just the prioritization as we see the projects moving forward. These projects, like Bryden is a great example. Bryden, before this motion, was number one. We had our marching orders for the last 20 years that we were going to do Bryden. Now Bryden isn't number one. That doesn't mean we stop work on it. That would be a different public hearing where we say, we're not gonna do Bryden anymore. That's not what this is. This is just a prioritization as of, these are the projects that we are seeking funding sources for. Those that, there's, what did I say, 1, 8, and 13 have funding sources. We're not stopping on those. Those are moving forward.
Thank you, Director. Counselor Lidke, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just say that I'm simply looking to the future, and I understand that these things have been worked on, but, and to not put Counselor Kleberg on the spot, but when we talk about 20-year plans, we have people that are wanting to see action. I'm simply saying, when we look forward to other funding, we reprioritize. Some of these small projects can still be funded through special grants, through specific grants. I'm not saying that we don't fund anything that comes down the pike that gives us that availability. I'm simply saying that when we develop our budget, and we are saying to our public that we hear them and we understand that for our town to start moving out of 100-year-old destruction that is, we just lost a water reservoir. I don't want to lose Main Street. So I am not making a motion to take anything off of the table as far as current funding, current projects in place. I'm saying I hear from the public, and I believe this is a smart move forward to go after some of the bigger projects that house the businesses that are serving our community. I would like to reprioritize. I do not want to mess with any funding.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Director. Clerk Ravencroft, unless there's a question on the motion. Clerk Ravencroft, please.
Council President Lidkey,
Aye.
Councilor Towsley,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman. Aye. Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Kleberg,
Is this with the amendments?
correct.
Nay.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Next up, councilors, just as a reminder, we are under Roman numeral 5 in public. And we're now looking at item number C, public hearing on ZA-04-22, accepting testimony on ZA-04-22, a proposal to rewrite Lewiston City Code Section 37-94, Planned Unit Development Zone. And we have Ms. Katie Hollingshead with us here tonight to give us a presentation. Again, this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. We'll have a staff presentation, accept testimony from the public if there is any, up to 3 minutes each, and then I will close the public hearing. So with that, I will open the public hearing and welcome Ms. Katie Hollingshead here. Please remember to speak up loudly and clearly so those at home can hear what you have to say.
Good evening,
The
Mr.
floor
Mayor,
is yours.
council
Thank you.
members. My name is Katie Hollingshead, Assistant Planner. Tonight I'm bringing forward zoning code amendment ZA-04-22 and the associated ordinance 4872. This is a rewrite of our planned unit development code. Our planned unit development code is, it's a specialized zoning district that the city of Lewiston utilizes in specific circumstances. We've utilized this for both commercial and residential developments. Developments such as Canyon Crest Estates or the Northeast Crossing are residential developments that have utilized this. We've had several commercial planned unit developments that would allow for a varying variety of business uses in certain areas where they may not otherwise have been allowed. Part of this rewrite, and it is a complete rewrite rather than just some amendments, was trying to make this code less cumbersome and easier for our developers to use, and also to match it up better with our subdivision code, as many of the projects that come through a planned unit development will also go through the subdivision process. So this kind of clears away some of the items that didn't match, where we had to determine, is this a one side or the other side? So this kind of clears that up. Community Development Department and the Public Works Department worked together extensively over the past year to make sure that the code amendments that are in front of you tonight worked in both situations, both in our planned unit development code and in that subdivision code. This matter went in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and was initiated back in October. We then held a public hearing in January on the 25th. No testimony was received from the public, and the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to City Council. And that's kind of it, and I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Katie, Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor. So Katie, with this, will this impact any existing or any current projects?
No.
requests?
So the way that a planned unit development works is you have the zoning code that kind of gives you the outline for things. But then each planned unit development actually has an agreement, which is separate from the code itself, that is specific to that area, that development. So those still stay in place. Nothing changes with those. They just continue to exist for the entirety of their life.
Thank you.
Councilor Kleberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Ms. Holling said, under 37-96, paren C, the proposed land uses are to be mutually harmonious, compatible with the adjacent land uses in an agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan.
Correct.
Now, when I was on council the last time, we had a planned unit development that was approved out at 21st and Grell, which was totally, in my opinion, not in agreement with the comprehensive plan because it's neighborhood number 7, the East Orchards. 53 people testified against it, and it started. So how's that gonna work out?
So a reminder that this body approved that. This body is able to not approve those. Staff tries to present the best case. We provide all the information we have at our disposal, including the different sections of the comprehensive plan that apply to each individual application that comes across. There's a lot of time spent with the developer and the legal department figuring out the gives and takes of an agreement. But ultimately, it is the Planning and Zoning Commission and then City Council's job to decide whether that is the best fit for the City of Lewiston and to either approve or deny.
Okay.
Councilor Lidkey?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Katie, I do have a question really go along with that. On page 3 of 6 of the ordinance, letter C, new language. And I apologize, and if I'm reading into this, please tell me that I am and show me the words that will protect those applicants. But it reads to me very subjective in the new language as far as private roadways as defined in chapter 32 of this code. And thank you to Jennifer for directing me to that section earlier today, but may be permitted within the project if their maintenance is provided for as acceptable to the public works director. They are designed and installed to specifications acceptable to the city engineer, and they are approved by the city council. Where the prior language was really private roadways shall be permitted within the project provided they are approved by the city council and installed to city specifications for similar public streets. I feel like there's less subjectivity in that original language, and not that I think we go through a lot of public works directors or city engineers, but we have multiple city engineers that can look at each project differently. And so I think it opens us up to some subjectivity that is not going to be great in the long run. And so I'm just wondering if the original language is not more code friendly.
So I have our director with us. So my consideration there was, like I said, we worked extensively with Public Works Department on that, and that was one of the areas that was gray between the two codes and left a lot to be desired when it came to working with developers. We don't very often see private roads, but there are standards for private roads, and so I'll let Dustin speak to that.
Yeah, so Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. I guess trying to find flexibility and subjectivity and trying to find a balance in there. Typically, when PUDs come up for review, we try to find a way to meet safety standards as far as width. There's been many examples, and it's not Lewiston, it's all over the country, where private developers have come in and saved money by coming in with a reduced standard that they'll call a private street, and then the developer leaves, and then in 15 years, the homeowners, the people want the city to take over the streets. And so that's why on the front end, in these development of these PUDs, it benefits to have the applicant work with the engineers to say, these are the standards that we would accept, and why they're such a way. And there's certain standards that we just wouldn't deviate on, as far as widths and emergency access. Then you get into, some subjective criteria such as drainage, types of curbs. So the reason it was drafted that way is because a lot of that stuff is technical details. It makes it a little bit easier for the council to approve it when the technical details have been fully vetted out before it gets in front of the body. And so, I understand the comment as far as subjectivity. More often than not, the subjectivity gives us the flexibility where we're up against topography. Topography is probably the hardest thing to work with in a city that's built on a hill. So that's why it allows the front end work to be done on the technical side for a better product afterwards. So that's why it was drafted the way it was drafted, but I can see the perception.
Councillor Ledke?
Thanks, Dustin. I'm not wanting to take anything away from that process necessarily as far as making sure we're all good. I think the way it's written alludes that we might not see it at the city council level. And I will say, and nothing against city engineers, but for me, when we talk about rule and code, we kind of start with, does it go to the city engineer first and then to you and then to us? So if we're going to line that out, I just want to make sure that we're giving each applicant a very clear path forward. And so I appreciate that you see that there is some subjectivity, that we want to make sure that it's the same process for every business. And so I guess that's where less language sometimes leads to that more so than when we start to add more language into a code.
Thank you, Councillor. Other comments, further comments, Council? Okay, is there testimony from the public? Anyone here from the public that would like to testify? None. I will declare this public hearing closed. Council will move on to item number D, ordinance 4872, first reading, considering the amendment to various sections in chapter 37, articles 1 and 3 of the Lewiston City Code to change the name of the zoning code, amend definitions, and amend regulations pertaining to plan unit developments, repealing section 37-95, titled designation and reserving such section, repealing and replacing section 37-97 regarding administrative procedures for planned unit developments, amending section 37-115 regarding contract zoning agreements, action item.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Owsley.
Yeah, I appreciate that staff has gone through to try to make this a more streamlined situation for them as well as for the public as we try to continue with these PUDs. And for that reason, I would like to make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4872.
Second.
Been moved by Councillor Towsley, seconded by Councillor Schroeder to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4872. Is there further discussion? Amendments, if any? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Clerk Ravencroft.
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4872, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston amending various sections in Chapter 37, Articles 1 and 3 of the Lewiston City Code to change the name of the zoning code, amend definitions, and amend regulations pertaining to planned unit developments, repealing Section 37-95 titled Designation and reserving such section, repealing and replacing Section 37-97 regarding administrative procedures for planned unit developments, amending Section 37-115 regarding contract zoning agreements, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Councilors, Roman numeral 6 and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the councilor so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda, considered on the active agenda under items moved from the consent agenda. Councilor Kleberg.
Just not going to remove anything. Citizen comments from November 14th. Scout Elford was here. That's in the second little citizen comments. Scout is a she, not a he. I'd like that typo fixed. Public record. Thank you.
Councilors, the item is before you. Councilor Schroeder.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Schroeder, second by Counselor Kleberg to approve the consent agenda. Is there discussion?
Mayor,
Counselor Forsman?
I'm too late on this, I'm trying to quickly, but,
There's no separate discussion on these, counselors. You have to address the motion. The motion was to approve the consent agenda.
oh,
Clerk Ravencroft?
Council President Lidkey,
Aye.
Councilor Towsley,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
aye.
Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, counselors. Counselors, we move to Roman numeral 7, our active agenda. First item up there is the 2022 City of Lewiston audit concerning approval of the 2022 audit performed by President Gage. This is an action item, and I see we have Director Amy Gordon with us here tonight from the Finance Department. Amy, please introduce yourself for the record. Remember to speak up loudly and clearly, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Amy Gordon, City Treasurer. Earlier today, you had a presentation of the city's financial report for the year ended September 30th, 2022. And in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce to you our independent auditing firm to present that to you for formal approval this evening. Prior to doing so, I'd just like to offer a few comments. This is, as you can tell, a 5-month process for the city staff. So I would first like to thank my staff for their diligence and their efforts that they've put in the last 5 months on the extra work they put in to the audit process. We have about a 6-week process of reconciling accounts, doing annual worksheets, preparing capitalization entries for fixed assets. They work very hard and diligent to do that in conjunction with their other tasks. I would also like to thank our audit committee members who provide oversight and transparency to the process. In addition, I'd like to thank our city directors and their staff for accommodating our questions and items that come up that we need attention to during our process. But last but not least, I'd like to thank our auditors for the time they put into our audit. And I would like to introduce to you Don Aliverti from Presnell Gage. They are the independent auditing firm that comes in and audits our transactions and our financial figures. And Don is the partner for the city's audit.
Don, welcome. If you would please introduce yourself to the committee and remember to speak up loudly and clearly. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight. I'm Dawn Aliverti, as Amy had indicated, the audit partner and the partner in charge of the City of Lewiston's audit engagement. I'm here tonight to formally present the Council with the audited financial statements and reports for the fiscal year September 30, 2022. We have reviewed the financial statements with the audit committee, which was established approximately 12 years ago, and to provide additional transparency. The annual comprehensive financial report is provided to you in final form prior to tonight, and that we have discussed the information in detail earlier today at the work session. Presnell Gage has performed your audit in accordance with audit standards generally accepted in the United States of America. Under those standards, it is the objective of the audit to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements. Basically, the financial statements and the information reported in the annual comprehensive financial report is the responsibility of management, and this council and Presnell Gage is responsible for issuing an opinion on the information provided after the audit is completed. Within the annual comprehensive financial report, there are some opinions that belongs to Presnell Gage. We issued an opinion indicating the city's financial statements with regard to governmental activities, business type activities, the component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining funds are fairly presented in all material respects. This is an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. Another opinion that has been issued, we audited the city's compliance with state and federal regulations along with the internal controls over these compliance requirements with regard to federally funded major programs. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on that financial statement, or on that report as well. A third report that's included in the annual comprehensive financial report was during our audit, we considered the city's internal control processes over financial reporting and determined they have procedures in place for to account for the city's funds. And this is a clean with no findings listed in that report. I do want to thank the staff at the city and you as the council for everything that you have done to make our process very more seamless, I guess I'd have to say. If there's no questions, I'd like to formally request that the council authorize the release of the financial statements as presented.
Councilors, Councilor Schroeder. Motion's in order.
I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 audit report.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, seconded by Councilor Kleberg to approve the fiscal year 2022 audit report. Is there discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, councilors. Next up, item B. Thank you, Don. Resolution 2023-5, declaring governmentjobs.com incorporating DBA NeoGov is the only reasonable available vendor for software solutions for public workforce management. This is an action item. We have with us our HR Director, Nikki Province. Nikki, welcome. Please remember to speak up loudly and clearly.
I'm writing out a text video just right now to see if I can get that answer. But
Thank you, Councilor. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Province, HR Director for the city. I'm here in front of you today looking for approval of Resolution 2023-5 regarding sole source of NeoGov. We currently use 3 modules from NeoGov. One is applicant tracking, one is perform, and one is learn. We're looking to purchase 2 more modules, which puts us over the 50,000 threshold. We obviously went to our purchasing department and asked to go through the procurement process. NeoGov is the only software entity that was able to give us everything that we had asked for. Purchasing did a search amongst other software companies, looking to see if they could give our list of requirements, and NeoGov was the only one that could provide us with a complete modules, sole source, or modules, single sign-on, integration with Tyler, and then governmentjobs.com. So I'm looking to get approval to continue using NeoGov and purchasing those 2 platforms. So,
Thank you, Director. Councilors, questions? Councilor Spickemeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. Nikki, in this, I was trying to read near the description. Is this basically just for hiring? I see the performance and learning.
yeah, I can.
Just hiring?
No, applicant tracking is our recruitment platform. It allows anybody to apply for the City of Lewiston online, create an account with governmentjobs.com. Our Learn system is a training platform for our employees, and you have a dashboard where you can access all these platforms, so it's user-friendly for our employees. And then Perform is a new performance management so that supervisors can evaluate their employees. The ones we're looking to purchase are eForms. eForms allows any internal form with the city to be electronic and go through an electronic workflow. Currently, for signatures, we print out paper, sign it, stick it in an envelope, it goes to somebody, comes back to you, goes to somebody else. This is intended to make a smoother process where all signatures are done electronically. And then onboarding is for new hires to fill out benefit paperwork, but it also can notify IT to set up an email account. It can notify our payroll department to set up a position control or a new employee information on our Tyler Munis system. So the platform itself has different modules that all work in conjunction with each other. And then what's nice is that they then integrate with our existing Tyler Munis technology.
So at $74,000 a year, do all the departments use this software?
Yeah, it's intended, well, HR uses it for their new hire employees, and all employees can use our training platform. The Learn was actually purchased by IT, but it's within the NeoGov platform. But it allows employees to access trainings. It allows supervisors to assign different trainings to employees as part of the performance management process. So it is utilized by all of our employees citywide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Forsman?
Do you foresee, so right now you're having to use the signature form you just described, right?
Mhm.
Do you foresee that maybe that would save some money with cost of personnel because they're not having to spend that time?
Yeah, I mean, all of these use of technology is intended to be more efficient, right? It's even part of my strategic plan is to use technology to become more efficient. So I don't have to come in front of council to ask for people, right? To hire new people and benefits is an expensive budgetary item, but use of technology allows us to create efficiencies. So for example, you're cutting down in the time it takes to get one simple form signed out and filled out by 5 people. It's all electronic, it's notification via email, it's accessible, anywhere. So it's meant to be more efficient and user-friendly, give a better service. So.
Director Province, would it be okay if I ask Director Spooner, because I want to get some mileage out of him. We don't see this guy very often. He hides somewhere. But Director, maybe too for the council, if you could just reintroduce yourself to them, your position and welcome. But maybe if you could just help us understand a little bit more about, why we buy these kinds of products at the City of Lewiston and what you're hoping to do with them through your department.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Dustin Spooner, Information Systems Director. So one area that I can kind of clarify with Nikki is some automations. We're not looking to eliminate jobs, but we're looking to make jobs more efficient. And one way we do that is right now with signing documents, we'll send out 300 plus emails, and all of those emails have to be archived. And they get pretty big when there's a lot of forms in them. So now the employee has to print that email out, sign it, scan it back in, email it back. Again, IT archives that for future use. So that archive space isn't free. So we're always looking for efficiencies in our area. Nikki found a great solution, and IT was on board with that. We like to look at platforms that can offer multiple solutions. Right now, our big one is Google, has multiple solutions in it. It's just easier for us to manage instead of having multiple vendors out there. So those are just kind of some of the efficiencies we look for.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Chowsley?
So this is like a suite of software that you're able to use that all integrates.
Yeah, right from the hiring process all the way through filling out benefits and learning and evaluations. I mean, it's a great product.
So as somebody who really appreciated using this suite of products, but I also used freeware and shareware, there's nothing like that out there, is there?
In our industry...
I mean, I used Open Office with my students because I could.
Yes, you can. And we do like to look at that, but sometimes it's nice to have someone to call when something breaks. So I'll just leave that out there. That's, in this industry, we've kind of learned our lesson.
And this is an ongoing cost. It looks like it's $74,000, and that's annual?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Mr. Mayor, so Nikki or either, so with this additional, like for FY23, is this additional 50,000 going to come out of your existing budget, or you're asking for more?
This will come out of our existing budget. We were able to, the IT team was finding some areas where we could cut software with, okay from the mayor, we cut some software, and save that money, and we're using existing budget.
Yeah, so we're currently paying about 48,000 for what we're currently using through NeoGov. This would add that additional amount. So it's already budgeted for this year, and then would be incorporated into IT rates moving forward.
Councilor Fortune?
Sorry. What do you foresee like the ROI on this?
You know, it'll be hard to evaluate that until we really get into it and see what it can do, but we do look at that. I think adoption is a big part of that. So we have to really use it and make our team use it, and so get away from our traditional way of sending documents around, and that's where we'll find our cost savings. But it's hard for me to stand up here and give you a number on that.
I mean, I will say just ease of use. For example, when we meet with a new hire, we have a packet of paperwork, and we spend about an hour and a half going through each one of those forms. And sometimes our new hires will say, oh, I want to talk about this with my spouse, or I want to come back tomorrow. Well, by having it through NeoGov, you know, you have that capability to allow people to complete it online, right? Anything they want to talk about with their spouse or take home, it gives notification to the HR department when it's completed. Part of the onboarding process could be requiring them to read policies and sign in agreement of those policies. There's just a number of things that we can now add that, you know, otherwise face-to-face might be a long process. And it doesn't mean that we want to take away that face-to-face, it's just for ease and use. You know, I kind of call it maybe like old school way, where we're printing out all that paper and we're having them handwrite everything over and over and over again. This really kind of is an online ability to kind of auto-populate or complete the forms and have it go through a workflow that's a little bit easier to process.
Councilor Forsman?
Maybe my last one. With, say the year ends and you guys are feeling this isn't up to par, or it's not doing what you were told, or it's not satisfactory, can you back out from that, or are we kind of stuck into this once we're in it?
I think we would have individual modules. We would be able to put something in the contract to back out of that module. That's typically what we do annually.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have to necessarily get rid of NeoGov completely, but let's say we learned that onboarding really wasn't giving us what we expected it to be. We could choose the next year to not have that module, but still keep the other four, or still keep the integration to Tyler Munis. These are selected modules out of many, and they have many more modules that we aren't choosing.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Schroeder?
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this. I think it sounds like a great thing, and I think that people that would be impressed with us and our technology when they go and apply. So I think this is great, and I'd like to make a motion to approve it. I move to approve resolution 2023-5.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Towsley to approve Resolution 2023-5. This is a roll call vote. Clerk Ravencroft?
Council President Lidkey. I'm sorry. Was that
Councilor, could you repeat? We did not capture.
It was a very timid aye.
Thank you. Councilor Towsley.
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder.
Aye.
Councilor Kleberg.
Aye.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Next up, item C, Resolution 2023-12. Thank you, Nikki and Dustin. Considering approval of lease agreement between the City of Lewiston and Lewis Clark Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization for office space located in the Bell Building at 215 D Street, as well as telephone and internet access. This is an action item. Director Groh is not able to join us tonight. Director Johnson is here. Director Johnson, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dustin Johnson, coming to you tonight as a member of the MPO to talk about the lease agreement. Basically, it was discovered in kind of the reorganization of what's going on with the MPO that the current lease with the city had expired, I think, in September, end of September of 2022. So essentially, the MPO is a standalone entity. So our MPO is one of the smallest ones in the country, and so we kind of bounce between having a full-time employee, now we're transitioning into having a contract with the city to administer it. We're fortunate to have Shannon Groh, who's now our community development director, but has had experience with the MPO for decades now. All of that isn't really pertinent to what we have here tonight, is other than the MPO is a standalone agency. It needs to be housed, it should be housed within one of the agencies it represents. So it has traditionally, as long as I know, maybe Council Kleberg may correct me, but as long as I've known, it's been housed within the city of Lewiston, and it's been housed in the Bell Building. And so this lease just basically continues the way we've operated. It's $100 a month lease for that space. The MPO has their own computer, their own printer, their own files, and currently it's a contract agreement with City of Lewiston staff to administer the MPO. So nothing really changes. Slight change in that since the space is being restricted down with Shannon's new role downstairs, the office will move downstairs, but the meetings will continue to be the same they've operated, the emails, the way the files are kept. They're also audited by some of the same people that we just had for tonight. So nothing really changes. It's just a continuation of the lease that we've had with the city for a long time. So I will do my best to answer any questions. We also have 2 MPO members up there too.
Thank you, Director. Councilors?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Kleberg?
I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2023-12.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Forsman to approve resolution 2023-12. Is there discussion? Clerk Ravencroft?
Council President Lidkey.
Aye.
Councilor Cowsley.
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder.
Aye.
Councilor Kleberg.
Aye.
Councilor Spickmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, councilors. Next up, resolution 2023-13, considering approving a special ballot question for the May 16, 2023 election to increase the Vista Corporation's franchise fee from 1% to 3%. This is an action item, and I will lead the discussion. Councilors, if you have your packets or your computers with you, you'll see a copy of resolution 2023-13, and it gives what I think is a pretty good background behind franchise to a Vista Corporation, but then also franchise fees and their purpose and need for those. Attached to the back of that is some proposed ballot language. This would go to the county. The county would put this on the May election, and you can read through that. It talks about in as non-persuasive language as we can do. That is something that is neutral, so that we don't advocate for or against a position. What property taxes are, what franchise fees are, how franchise fees are generated, how they're assessed and paid, and what it may cost a customer potentially if the franchise fee were to be increased from 1% to 3%. And then at the end there just talks very briefly about our annual budget for reconstruction and maintenance of city streets exceeding $6 million, and that this budget is expected to increase in the future. And then the franchise fees are a certain source of revenue to help pay for these increased costs. So we heard earlier tonight from Director Johnson about some of these costs through our CIP plan, and we saw reference to different funding sources, property taxes, STP, federal dollars, grants, these kind of things. This is just another way for the city to help pay for its streets programs. I brought a copy of the Idaho statute, Title 50, Chapter 3, that talks about franchise fees, and I'm just going to read this to you just for your information. Franchise fees paid by public service providers will be in lieu of and as payment for any tax or fee imposed by city on a public service provider by virtue of its status as a public service provider, including but not limited to taxes, fees, or charges related to easements, franchises, rights-of-ways, utility lines, and equipment installation, maintenance, and removal during the term of the public service provider's franchise with the city. As you know, we recently signed a new franchise with the Vista Corporation, a 50-year franchise, so They're going to be in our community for a long time. Just to anticipate some other questions, yes, there's many cities, if not all cities in the state of Idaho, have a franchise fee of at least 1% surrounding us, assuming the information I have is current. Moscow's at 3%, Coeur d'Alene's at 5%, and you can see that for the city of Lewiston, we don't collect as much in franchise fees to help pay for these costs in our streets. I will share with you too, as an example, right-of-way permits. So others who don't have a franchise would purchase right-of-way permits for us. To give you an example of how much those permit fees have gone up over the years, and maybe this is a kind of a substitute, if you will, for our road costs at the city, but this is from Jill Tolman. She's our public works specialist here at the city of Lewiston, and she sent this to me today. She said typical right-of-way permits for a street cut of 10 by 10 or less would be the base fee plus a bellhole for a current total of $92.06. In fiscal year 22, it would have been $56.42, and in fiscal year 12, it would have been $46.65. So you can see that our fees are going up just even in our right-of-way permits. And so this is probably consistent with what we're seeing in a lot of our costs to maintain our streets. It just costs more money. And when we cut into the streets, it adds a little bit more wear and tear to the streets in terms of the surface of the road and, impacts of vehicles driving on top of that, these kind of things. And so franchise fees just help us, to pay for those, help pay for our streets through that process. So those fees are in lieu of, and also just to share with you, you may or may not know that we now charge our water and wastewater programs for right-of-way permits. But the franchise utilities and city projects, there are no charges. So with that, councilors, I will try to answer any questions you may have. So I will open that up. Councilor Towsley?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a question, but I have comments about this. I feel like we all know that property taxes have been a huge impact, but commercial property has not been affected the way that or people who own homes, property taxes have. And it hit me hard this week. I realized that this is a big deal. Franchise fees are everybody's gonna be paying for that, right? Commercial as well as private ownership. So I'm all in favor of that. I think they need to help out a lot more than they have, or because of how the things have been structured this year. So I'm certainly in favor of this. I want it to be on the ballot.
Councilor Forsman?
Yeah, just to second that, and to say too, that us as council, just because we're on council, we don't get a tax break either. So our taxes are just as hurting as on us. So I got to see mine, and I'm not happy about it. And so hopefully this might be a way that we can kind of ease the burden on the property tax. I'm not going to say that the new council would lower your property taxes, but maybe this could be a step forward towards that. It's hard to fight that now. I know it's hard to chew, considering we're already having high property taxes. Now we're bringing something to you to decide whether you want to pay more in your electricity bill. But I think in the long run, we're going to see the benefit to it. And so we kind of have to look beyond today, which can be hard at times. And it's also coming up to ballot. So we're not council solely making this decision. Everybody is going to make this decision. So just reminding the public that they are in charge of this decision, and it kind of puts that in your hands, which I know is a benefit to the public, that they are able to do that. So I suggest you really look into it thoroughly to see if you feel like this is the right move. I feel like it is, and as the mayor says, things are continuing to get more and more expensive, and we're not seeing things going down. And I project this year probably is going to get even higher. So hopefully at some point we'll start to see this break in the economy, and we'll start seeing things go back reasonably again. But for now, I think this could be send a step to the right forward.
Councilor Schroeder?
Thank you. I think this is one of the greater tools that we have in our toolbox, because it affects anyone who uses a Vista and gas and electric. And so it's not just the homeowners, it is spread across all of us that heat our homes or use gas or whatever. So it, to me, is a very good utilization of collecting because it has a broader base than property tax does. Not everybody has the ability to own homes and they don't pay property tax. So this takes into consideration a broader base. And I have been in support of it when it was on, it ran on 17 and I don't remember if it was approved or not, but it was misunderstood and I tried to explain several times back in 17. So it is a concept that you need to really kind of wrap your head around, but really it's the broad base that this is why it's so good for our community to do it. Thank you.
Thank you,
And I'll
Council.
support it.
Thank you. Council Spicklemeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. So with this 2% or going up to 3%, do we have a rough estimate, with a normal homeowner, that'd mean a $2 or $3 increase per month? So overall, do we have a rough estimate what that would bring monthly or annually to the city?
Thank you, Counselor, for that question. I think today we're around $400,000 a year in franchise fees from Avista, so figure triple that if it goes up to 3%. So for an average homeowner, I mean, I can tell you that for myself, I'm probably looking at $2 or less a month for this fee. Councilor Kleberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, part of this, last time I checked, all the streetlights in this town are lit courtesy of the city of Lewiston, and I think it comes out of the transportation budget. Isn't that true? Moscow, you were talking about Moscow. Moscow they actually have a user fee for their streetlights. We don't have one. Go a long ways towards paying for the power bill, just for the lights, not just for fixing up the streets, but yeah, I'm in favor.
Councilor Lidke?
Thanks, Mayor. I also support this, but I understand that many people got their Avista bill today with a notice that said that they're proposing some increases as well. And so 3% doesn't look like 3% if you look at what Avista is going to do to raise their rates. But I think Councilor Forsman said it best in the sense that we're not going to see things go down. So how do we spread the bill out? And I'm sitting in my office of a nonprofit that doesn't pay property taxes, and it bugs me. I try to figure out ways that our business contributes to this community, and this is a way that we will be able to do that pretty heftily. 14% increase on our bill looks quite good when residents are paying maybe 3 to 5 with an increase. Let's just go that way. I did the math today, and I'm going to be pushing a fee of close to $240, and that to me is something that I have the ability to make adjustments with my business plan, how we deal with our bills here, where folks that are on limited income can't make those adjustments. And so, to the point that the other counselors have made, this is our chance to get people like myself, like churches, like government bodies to chip in. It's an equitable revenue, but I would also like to say that I'm not just for finding other ways to raise people's prices. I'm committed to, if this passes and giving it to the voice of the people, if not, it passes, that we look at our budget and figure out a way to bring more relief to the taxpayer. So yes, I'm for it for those reasons, but I don't want us to forget that it's not just about finding other ways to build revenue. We have to look at controlling our budget. So, I will support this motion, or support this resolution. I guess there's not a motion yet.
Thank you, Counselor. And Counselors, I just want to point out to you and for the public at home that should this question pass in the election, that all of the fees that are raised through this process are designated for construction, reconstruction, and maintenance of city streets. We heard that earlier from Director Johnson, and you know, I know we're asking the public to trust us on this, quite honestly, and I feel very confident that we can make good on that trust, and that we will put all that money into these projects, worthy projects. They'll have an opportunity to comment on those through CIP and other programs, but I think if, I feel very strongly that if we have the tools where we can help jumpstart our economy and do some things, reinvest in our community here, that it's going to bring a good return for us. So I feel very, very positive about this, and I just appreciate your comments today, and I hope those listening at home, if you have questions, again, should this pass and go out, you'll be hearing from the city. We'll be out doing a public engagement campaign to answer your questions, tell you what it does, what it doesn't do. And I would invite you, if you're listening at home or online, to please get a hold of any of us, but myself in particular, and I would be happy to come explain this to you. So thank you very much. Councilors, further comments? Councilor Towsley?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-13.
Been moved by Councilor Towsley, second by Councilor Schroeder to approve Resolution 2023-13. Is there discussion, further discussion? Clerk Ravencroft?
Council President Lidke,
Aye.
Councilor Towsley,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Thank you, councilors. Next up, item E, WW044, WWTP 2020. Sounds like I'm on the runway. Clear for takeoff.
There he goes.
5-6 X-ray. WW044, WWTP 2020 improvements, change order number 7, Williams Brothers. Director Johnson, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Dustin Johnson, Public Works Director. In front of you tonight is a change order for the wastewater treatment plant. Essentially, the long and the short of it is that when they designed this project, they for a cost-saving measure, they did not include all of the asphalt to be replaced out at the plant. So obviously this project's been going on. It's $34 million completed for 3 years. And reviewing just generally the site, staff looked at it, the contractor and the consulting engineer just said, you know, if you're going to be investing that much money into a facility, it makes sense to complete the parking lots, complete all of the areas. It's complicated. If you look at the exhibit that was provided, you know, there's a lot of nooks and crannies and corners and circular areas. And all of that asphalt that was scheduled to remain was original to the plant. So it's 30, 40 years old. It's not heavily used, but you know, it is showing its age. And so we decided it's probably best to just start clean from everything and pave it. So that's the change order in front of you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Director. Councilors? Councilor Schroeder?
I make a motion to approve change order number 7 with Williams Brothers Construction LLC and authorizing the mayor to sign said change order.
Second.
Ben?
Second.
Councilor Kleberg? Spickelmeyer, was it? Oh. It's been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Kleberg to approve change order number 7 with Williams Brothers Construction LLC and authorizing the mayor to sign said change order. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk Ravencroft?
Council President Lidke,
Councilor, we can't hear you.
My apologies, the screen keeps going black. Aye.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor Towesley?
Aye.
Counselor Forsman?
Aye.
Counselor Schroeder?
Aye.
Counselor Kleber?
Aye.
Counselor Spickelmeyer?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, counselors, and I'm going to take this opportunity for a commercial break. I hope Director Barker was listening to that last presentation, because it sounds like there could be some old asphalt available for some cart paths out at the golf course, but you might talk to Director Johnson about that, see if there's any life left in that asphalt. Next up is item F, ordinances, first reading, ordinance 4876, amending section 2-42 of the Lewiston City Code related to the Compensation Review Committee. This is an action item, and again, I will lead the discussion on this, counselors. Counselors, last year, we made some changes to Chapter 2 of our city code. Most of us probably remember those changes. Counselor Spickelmeyer, we changed from a city manager to a mayor and changed some other things within that. And one of the items that was added to Chapter 2 was to set up a compensation review committee that would be tasked with making recommendations on any adjustments to salaries and compensation for the mayor and the council members. So what this does is it sets up this compensation review committee. It says here up in the item history to be appointed in January. We missed that of each odd number year, and that the committee must consist of exactly 7. We changed it to be not specifically in January, but to allow 5 or 7 members to be appointed. So should this pass, we will put out a call for committee members and from the public, and I think there's one is a city council member. I think one of them has to be a city council member that sits on that committee, and they just have to have their recommendation back to the council at least 75 days prior to the next election. That's why this is coming up now. And the council then can take those recommendations and act on them or not. This committee is, they're really just in existence every other year. That they'll be appointed through December, but really they meet sometime probably in late spring or early summer to do their work and then come back before the council. So that is the action item. You have the ordinance in front of you.
Mayor,
Counselor?
motion.
Counselor Forsman?
Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4876.
Been moved by Counselor Forsman, second by Counselor Kleberg, to approve first reading of ordinance number 4876. Is there further discussion? Amendments? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk Ravencroft?
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4876, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston amending section 2-42 of the Lewiston City Code related to the Compensation Review Committee and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Next up, ordinance 4875, amending section 36.5-5C of Lewiston City Code related to water use for irrigation purposes at a municipal golf course. This is an action item.
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman?
motion.
Motion's in order.
Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4875.
Been moved by Councilor Forsman, second by Councilor Schroeder to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4875. Is there discussion?
Mr.
Councilor Towesley?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Director Barker. See, he's been sitting there all night.
We're like, we're out of here, go on.
I appreciate it, but Tim Barker, Parks and Rec Director for the city. I'll make this brief. What we're doing is we're making a recommendation to make a change within Code 36.5-5C, changing the word, standalone word of shall to may, to make such an agreement. We would like to change that within the code to make such an agreement optional depending on the circumstances, but not required. So again, changing the wording from shall to may. Shall requires us to make it an agreement be in place. Such an agreement could be used to pay a flat rate rate at city council's discretion, which is what's been the practice previously for the water, which could be paid out of the general fund if the council so chooses moving forward as stated in subsection D. The changes would open up our options.
Thank you, Director. Presentation here in the middle of a motion. Is there further discussion? Amendments?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Lidkey?
I'm okay with the wording change. I just want to make sure that we are bringing every circumstance to this body so that we can determine the right move forward.
So noted, Councilor. Thank you. I think we all share that concern. Thank you. Further discussion, councilors? Councilor Towsley?
Just, Director Barker, how would this, what would happen if we voted nay on this, if we voted this down? Tell me the situation that changes and why I don't quite understand why this is important.
Okay. So utilizing the word shall means that we must have an agreement in place that between the city water division and with the Parks and Rec, basically the Golf Fund, which is a division within Parks and Recreation, it requires us to have a set agreement for a set amount in place. Changing it to may allows us to open up our options and discuss other ways to fund the water that is utilized at the course, without necessarily having a set agreement in place.
Director, could you give an example?
I'm trying to remember, Kayla, did you have an example that?
Kayla Herman, City Attorney. I think you could probably just give the example of the set amount between the agreement, or in the prior agreement with the prior operator, and then possible options moving forward.
Okay. So for example, with our previous operator that was contracted with the city, paid approximately $35,000. We paid approximately $35,000 a year for water for irrigation purposes at the course. Moving forward, the city is going to be looking at our next meeting, approving a contract for a management firm to come into place and manage the city course for a monthly management fee, which the change in that is the revenue then really becomes the city's revenue as opposed to the contractor's revenue that pays a lease rate. And so with that, the city will be more involved in the day-to-day expenses on the course, but also we have the opportunity as well to take advantage of the revenues that are going to be generated from that course, which would open up some options for us, especially if the golf fund and the golf course becomes part of the general fund, for different ways to fund the payment of utilities such as water out at the course.
Thank you.
No further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, councilors. Clerk Ravencroft.
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4875, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston amending section 36-5.5 of the Lewiston City Code related to water used for irrigation purposes at the municipal golf course and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Councilors, next we move down to Roman numeral 9, unfinished and new business. City councilor comments. Comments should not be related to an item currently before the city council or an item that may become for the city council in the foreseeable future shall be limited to comments, not discussion. Councilor Schroeder.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as you see, we all have our technology in front of us. Most of us do anyway. You did, okay? And I'm not very techie at it, and I'm not very good at it. But I am really, really proud that I am learning how to use technology instead of paper, because last meeting, our packet was 284 pages. Am I correct? And so I stepped up to the plate and said, okay, I can learn this. And then they found a great way to teach me and help me. So I am learning this, and this week it's 125. So we are saving money on paper. We're not looking through our emails. We're not going on social media. We have our agendas in front of us, and we're working from that. So that is why we have technology in front of us.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Forsman?
I will be going to California for 16 days, so there's a couple meetings that I will not be in person, but I will be Zooming in. My sister-in-law has, for the third time, is fighting cancer. So hopefully she can fight it this time, but it's looking less than favorable this time around. It has gone into her bone on her chest, so there is less likelihood of survivability. So I want to be there to see my family. I have the opportunity with being on maternity leave to take this amount of time to go down there and spend time with them, and so that is why I will be out on those meetings. I don't like to not be here in person. I try to, as much as I can, be here in person. It's hard to Zoom in unless, I absolutely can't for my kids' reasons or other reasons. So I just want the public to know, staff to know that this is why I have chosen to take that time to go and see my sister-in-law and hopefully get as much time and love I can with her and be that support for her.
Thank you for sharing, Councilor. Councilor Spicklemeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of missed it about 2 weeks late, but I wanted to give a shout out to Chief Kuzak and his team, officers. I had 2 of his officers gave me a ride along. We went and looked at a lot of the homeless issues in town. Very eye-opening, and I appreciate it. They were very professional and enjoyed it.
Thank you, Councilor, for sharing those good words. Councilor Kleberg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment, on the discussion we had about the CIP tonight. And, having been a member of the MPO for quite some time, I just encourage, it's always open for public comment, and welcome, Councilor Schroeder and I both sit on it, and Dustin's the chair, I guess I'm the vice chair, whatever that means. But I've been the president of it in the past. I'd encourage the council to come down and see what's going on. It's just not necessarily just Lewiston, but it's the whole valley. And Keller Engineering Associates, they put on a big production here, and it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. But it was the 40-year traffic plan for the city of Lewiston in trying to prioritize things and where the traffic patterns are going to be going. I think it's an educational opportunity for people to show up and learn about where the predictions are for where the roads need to be widened because of anticipated future growth, things like that. So be involved, because this affects us as a community. I mean, Bryden, in my opinion, is still number one. That road is undersized and has been, because back when it was built, it was unincorporated area of Nez Perce County. Now we're having to deal with it. So this is what we're working with. Same thing with Thane Road. People talk about Thane. Well, Thane was built with a 60-foot right-of-way, and there's sidewalks on both sides and businesses right up to the sidewalks. So there's no widening of Thane. What are we going to do? So these are, to me, these are the important things. This is what I ran on, is improving infrastructure in this town, particularly transportation. So,
thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ledke, did you have anything for us?
Sure, I do have one thing. I just want to, first of all, do a quick shout out to my staff at OUI. We've had some homeless folks come through our thrift store and have actually stayed the night in our parking lot. And I've got to see the OUI staff's heart and how they've provided services and connected with those folks. And we've actually interviewed and hopefully will employ one of them. So I just want to give a shout out to my staff at Opportunities Unlimited for making each day something as a chance to make a difference. And I would just encourage, as I speak to more and more people that live in our city, to just please continue to be more involved. And I'm always open to having conversations, but making your voice heard in this arena is so much more powerful than me trying to speak for you, especially when I'm held captive in my office and unable to join in person. So, and again, I do apologize. I had commitments I could not get out of here at work, and so I'm thankful that I was able to join via Zoom.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Towesley?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I think it's important that the citizens of Lewiston continue to be actively involved in what we are trying to do as city council, as staff. However, I think there's a tendency for people to think that social media is the answer. And I don't think it is. I think social media, I love the good aspects about social media. There's some wonderful things, but it also, there's some dark things. And people are able to be less than social and less than civil on social media. Isn't that kind of an interesting thing, social media? And yet they're very antisocial at times. So if you really want to make an impact on what's going on in the city, get out there and talk to real people. Visit, come to these meetings. When we have open houses, come to the open houses. We want to talk to you. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. City Boards, Commission updates. Any reports today? Counselor Clayburgh?
Yes, we have an MPO meeting next Thursday. No, a week from Thursday. 4:15 Bell Building, if anybody wants to come out and see what we actually talk about.
Thank you.
HPC needs,
Huh?
HPC needs.
Boards and Commission updates, yeah.
Okay. I believe that the Historic Preservation Commission, they've hired one, they've taken on a new person on their board, but I think they still need another one. So if anybody's interested in the Historic Preservation Commission, even if they don't need you, they want to see you. So come and they'll put you to good work. So think about the Historic Preservation Commission.
Counselor, okay, next up, mayor comments. So I'm going to jump on what Counselor Towesley said, because we have at least 3 members of the public here. Jerry Chavez is here from Valley Vision. Thank you for being here. And I don't know the couple in the back, but thank you for being here tonight and being part of your city government. So appreciate that very much. Also, just to share, Pierre Ali was here a meeting or 2 ago. He's a student from Pakistan, LCSC student, and he contacted me Thursday night, and he's on a scholarship here, federal scholarship, and part of that requires him to do community service. So he was out Friday night doing some work in our community, and then on Saturday was picking up trash along Bryden Avenue. So we can thank Pierre for that. I didn't want to leave him alone, so I did accompany him. But just a reminder too, to everyone, the library has grabbers available, I think, still. Lynn has some grabbers. You can pick them up, get some vests and some bags, and you can go out and help clean up your community. It's actually not all that bad. And if you go with me, I might buy you coffee when we're done. So.
Whole crowd of people, free coffee.
That'd be great.
Okay, we have no appointments, so agenda topics, counselors. Okay, hearing none. Counselors?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Mr. Kleberg, seconded by Counselor Schroeder to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.